Is WWE changing their plans on Bray Wyatt and Uncle Howdy? And why didn't a few debuts happen at NXT Vengeance Day? We're going to answer those questions in today's video, and if you guys want more videos like this, go ahead and subscribe. I'll put the timestamps in the description down below. I want to kick things off with Uncle Howdy because people who attended WWE's house show last night, they saw Bray Wyatt come out in a Uncle Howdy mask, and that is actually a very interesting decision because so far we have seen Bo Dallas and a variety of other people portray Uncle Howdy on television. But with Bray Wyatt showing up at a live event wearing a mask, a lot of people are wondering if this means that Uncle Howdy is in fact Bray Wyatt and that is going to be his new character, which would replace The Fiend, which I think is a very logical and reasonable response to that question. But I think it's really important that people understand that WWE is in a very interesting situation with their house shows. One, you're not going to have all of the same production elements as television tapings. So if you want to have Uncle Howdy there in general, it probably doesn't make too much sense. And this is a way to have some sort of continuity and involvement from Uncle Howdy without necessarily bringing out Bo Dallas, having somebody dressed up in a character. And also, too, it does make sense for Bray Wyatt to wear the mask, considering the storyline that's actually gone on television. But I think another thing, too, that a lot of people need to understand is there is a good chance that Uncle Howdy will never actually be revealed as Bo Dallas himself, which could be very interesting. This could simply just be a character that we never technically see the reveal to, which I think definitely makes it more intriguing. Of course, me personally, I have leaned with the idea that I do want to see Bo Dallas as the man behind the mask, but of course, there is so much storytelling, and I don't feel like we are that close to the real reveal just yet. So whether or not Bray Wyatt is actually Uncle Howdy or not is a very valid question, and as of right now, it's really difficult to understand that. But yes, it is true, Bray Wyatt did wear the mask. Could WWE be changing their plans for Uncle Howdy and Bray Wyatt? I would say that could very well be on the table, but I do believe that Bray Wyatt, WWE, and head of creative, and of course, Rob Fee, who is the guy that was brought in for creative, I feel like they probably already have this mapped out, and everybody at this point just has their theories, which is, you know, pretty typical, I guess. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think Uncle Howdy is somebody else, or do you think it's Bray Wyatt? Which way do you think it's going to go? I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Guys, I want to talk to you about Dragon Lee. A lot of people were wondering why Dragon Lee wasn't at Vengeance Day, and it just turns out that WWE is having some visa issues with Dragon Lee, which is the reason why we haven't seen him at Vengeance Day, why we haven't seen him at New Year's Evil, why we haven't seen him on NXT television, and honestly, this sucks. WWE did a really good job of creating some hype around Dragon Lee coming to NXT. Obviously, WWE sharing the footage, WWE having a camera crew at the AAA event in which he announced that he was coming to WWE. It felt pretty big. It felt pretty massive. And there's been a lot of talks about Dragon Lee and where WWE sees him in the future. And there is this belief that he is going to be the next Hispanic star for WWE. And they definitely have plans to make that happen. There's also this belief that Dragon Lee may not actually be in NXT for long because there could be plans for him to go up to the main roster and be a big success. Not right away, but very close to right away. So this is very interesting. Obviously, when you look at the fact that WWE is having visa issues, it is prolonging the situation. The further and further it prolongs makes me really wonder, will WWE even keep the idea of Dragon Lee in NXT, or will they just move him straight up to the main roster anyways? And I think that really depends on how long these visa issues stand out for, because there are talent in WWE, especially that were part of NXT UK, who have not been able to jump over to NXT in America because of visa issues. And that's been a very long-winded process. So obviously, if that is something that's affecting the talent from the UK, how does that affect Dragon Lee being in Mexico? And I think, you know, one thing that I keep thinking of in this situation is that if WWE is going to have plans to make Dragon Lee a big star, I would be okay with the idea of them, you know, pushing him through right away to the main roster. I wouldn't even wait for him to be in NXT. Now, that does come with some caveats, right? The WWE universe may not be too familiar with who Dragon Lee is, and I think it is important that WWE, at the very minimum, does video packages and vignettes teasing his debut. Whether it's you know, to be honest, whether it's main roster or NXT, you got to introduce them to the people. Now, of course, I feel like the NXT audience will be a little bit more smarter than the Raw and SmackDown audience. But depending on the city that they're in, you know, if you just throw Dragon Lee on TV, it might not be receptive to great cheers. And that's based on evidence that we've seen with Triple H putting, you know, Io Sky and Dakota Kai at SummerSlam or whatever it may be. So, you know, I think it's really important that WWE makes sure that if they have big plans for Dragon Lee, they do it the right way. And I think it's really important for WWE to educate their audience on who this talent is. And I'm pretty sure WWE is not going to have an issue getting footage from AAA. I don't think that would be an issue. I'm sure WWE can work something out with them to license footage or whatever it may be. But I want to see WWE go back to its core. You know, when introducing talent, what video packages matter, vignettes, these things matter. It definitely hypes them up in a right way. And I think with some of these returns that have come to WWE, you know, they showed up on WWE Raw or SmackDown, and it was a nice little surprise, but then there was no momentum because nobody knows anything about them. And when you look at Bronson Reed, now we start seeing video packages. Now we see him on TV. People are a little bit more receptive to Bronson Reed. So I think that is probably the biggest thing that WWE needs to do here. But nonetheless, there is some issues with visa issues, and that's why we haven't seen him. And now it gets to a very, very interesting story because we got to talk about Carl Fredericks. A lot of people are also wondering, why do we not see Carl Fredericks at WWE NXT Vengeance Day? And it doesn't actually appear to be a visa issue like Dragon Lee, but it actually appears to be that WWE may not see Carl Fredericks as that big of a star, in which that they would put him in the crowd, kind of like they've done in the before with other NXT takeovers, you know, Keith Lee or Bobby Roode or whoever it was, EC3. You know, WWE always put somebody in the crowd. They highlighted them. Hey, they've signed to NXT. In this situation, they have not done that with Carl Fredericks, and the word going around is that they just don't view him as a big enough star for a spot like that. Now, of course, when things like this are floating around the internet, I try to take it with a grain of salt, but of course, Carl Fredericks coming from New Japan Pro Wrestling to WWE, I feel like that in its own could be something that WWE can utilize to make him feel bigger and better than ever before. But that is the reason why WWE canceled his debut for Vengeance Day. At least that's the word that's going around. Now, I do believe that WWE has quite a few talent that are going to be called up to the main roster very soon. And with that wave going to the main roster, this opens up doors for people making their television debuts, which ultimately leads to more storylines and more people getting television time. And I think that is exactly what WWE needs to do here. Carl Fredericks is a great talent. I actually think he is going to be a pretty big standout in NXT and hopefully transitions to the main roster very successfully. I would just simply put him on TV with video packages and stuff like that, tease his debut. I don't want it to be a long-winded thing because obviously people are familiar with him as well. But you do maybe 1 to 2 weeks of video packages teasing his debut, have him go up on TV and have a squash match, and then immediately challenge a big name in NXT so we can start building a big program for NXT Stand and Deliver. And I think that right there would be the best way to introduce somebody. You're not doing months of vignettes. You're not overhyping somebody, but you do about a week or two, have them do a squash match or a quick match or whatever it may be, and then immediately call out somebody. And I think that could be the right way. I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.